The impossible challenge. The grand chamber of the Galactic Unity Council hummed with the voices of hundreds of species. Massive crystal displays projected images of a swirling energy vortex that pulsed with dangerous intensity. Dr. Eliza Chen sat uncomfortably in the human delegation's modest section, trying not to feel intimidated by the towering Krith representatives or the floating crystalline Vuar beside her. Supreme Counselor Kelter, a massive six-limbed being with iridescent scales, raised his primary appendages for silence. The chamber gradually quieted. For 3 centuries, our finest minds have sought to create a stable quantum flux containment system. His translated voice boomed through the chamber. Such technology would revolutionize energy production across known space, but the physics have proven resistant. The Council has determined that a collaborative approach may yield results where individual efforts have failed. Eliza leaned forward, her interest piqued. Humanity had joined the galactic community a mere 40 years ago, discovered by a Genthi mining vessel that detected their primitive radio signals. The technological gap between Earth and the established species was staggering. Most had been spacefaring for thousands of years. Humans were still struggling to earn respect among the stars. Therefore, Kelter continued, we announce the nth-dimensional containment challenge. Any species may present a viable solution within one standard galactic cycle. The successful team will receive exclusive development rights for 20 cycles and propel their civilization to new heights. The Marin Collective representatives stood, their gelatinous form rippling with bioluminescent patterns. Supreme Counselor, with respect, our mathematicians have conclusively proven this is impossible using known physics. The void theorem established by our scholars demonstrates that no material can withstand such energies. A murmur of agreement swept through the chamber. The Xith, Uruvi, and other ancient species nodded their various appendages in agreement. Nevertheless, Kelter replied, we offer the challenge. Perhaps impossibility merely awaits a new perspective. Before she could second-guess herself, Eliza stood. The motion-sensing platform automatically adjusted, raising her small human form to be visible in the vast chamber. The Earth delegation volunteers, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The chamber erupted in sounds that the universal translator struggled to interpret. Some were clearly laughter, others disbelief. The Krith ambassador, whose species had been spacefaring when humans were still discovering agriculture, turned his massive head toward her. Human, your species has barely mastered primitive fusion. You cannot possibly comprehend the complexity of quantum flux containment. Eliza squared her shoulders. Respectfully, Ambassador, humanity specializes in achieving what others deem impossible. Let them try, chittered the Genthi representative, multifaceted eyes gleaming with amusement. It will be educational for the younglings. Kelter's expression was unreadable to human eyes, but his voice carried a note of curiosity. The human delegation is acknowledged. You have 1 cycle, 3 Earth years, to present a working prototype. As Eliza returned to Earth to assemble her team, the memory of alien laughter fueled her determination. The United Earth government provided reluctant support, wary of further embarrassment on the galactic stage. Most officials believed the project was doomed, but they couldn't ignore the potential benefits of success. You realize what you've done, right? Asked Director Hakim during their first meeting in Geneva. You've committed humanity to solving what the oldest spacefaring civilizations consider mathematically impossible. That's exactly why we'll succeed, Eliza replied. They've convinced themselves it can't be done. We haven't. She spent the next month recruiting her dream team. Not just the expected quantum physicists and engineers, but people with unorthodox backgrounds who approached problems differently. Dr. Maya Patel had revolutionized plasma containment by drawing inspiration from ancient pottery techniques. Jason Winters was an architect whose building designs defied conventional structural analysis. Dr. Kwame Osei had been laughed out of 3 universities for his theories on dimensional folding before a breakthrough experiment proved him partially right. They were joined by 20 others, Brilliant misfits from across Earth and its colonies, people whose ideas had been dismissed as too radical or impractical. The Council provided them with a research facility on Proxima, Earth's nearest exoplanet colony. The base was well-equipped but isolated, a clear message that the aliens expected little and wanted the inevitable failure to occur far from important galactic centers. "They're already writing us off," Jason observed during their first team meeting, gesturing to the bare-bones alien monitoring equipment installed in their lab. "Good," Maya replied with a fierce grin. "I work better without an audience." Their first 6 months were filled with failures. The quantum flux, a type of energy discovered by the Marin Collective centuries earlier, defied conventional containment methods. It ate through every material they tested, even the advanced alloys provided reluctantly by the Council. "The problem isn't the material," Quaim insisted after their 12th containment vessel dissolved into subatomic particles. "We're thinking about this all wrong. We're trying to create a box for something that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Marin void theorem proves," began one of the quantum physicists. "I don't care what it proves," Quaim interrupted. "Those proofs are based on assumptions about how physics works. The aliens have been spacefaring for millennia. They've built their understanding on layers of established science that no one questions anymore." Eliza, who had been quietly observing, suddenly straightened. "You're saying we need to go back to first principles?" "Exactly. We need to forget everything we've been told about why this is impossible." The team shifted strategies. Instead of trying to contain the flux energy directly, they began exploring indirect approaches. They studied ancient Earth concepts that predated modern physics, from Chinese Taoist principles of energy flow to indigenous Australian understandings of connection and space. 9 months in, they hit a revelation during a late-night brainstorming session. "What if," Maya suggested, sketching furiously on a tablet, "instead of trying to build walls to hold the energy, we create a system that continuously redirects it, like a river that feeds back into itself?" Jason's eyes widened. "A self-sustaining flow pattern, similar to how I designed the Cairo Spire to redirect wind forces." "It's not containment in the traditional sense," Eliza mused. "It's choreography." The team pivoted again, focusing on creating dynamic field patterns rather than static containment structures. The aliens had always approached the problem from a material science perspective: build something strong enough to hold the energy. The human team instead began designing energy fields that would guide the quantum flux into carefully calculated patterns, never allowing it to concentrate enough force in one location to break through. Progress came in small increments. Their first test lasted 3 seconds before collapsing. The second, 12 seconds. By the 18-month mark, they could maintain stable containment for nearly 5 minutes, far from practical application, but enough to prove their approach had merit. Word of their progress spread through the galactic community. The Krith ambassador made an unexpected visit, towering over the human researchers as they demonstrated their latest prototype. "Interesting," he rumbled as he watched the swirling energy patterns in their test chamber. "Unorthodox, but interesting. However, scaling this to commercial capacity would require computational power beyond your species' capabilities." Eliza smiled politely. "We're working on several solutions to that challenge, Ambassador." After he departed, Maya approached Eliza with concern. "He seemed very interested in our field modulation algorithms." "Too interested," Eliza agreed. "Double the security on our research database." The caution proved warranted. 2 days later, their systems detected a sophisticated intrusion attempt originating from a Krith communication frequency. The attack was repelled, but the message was clear: the other species were beginning to take the human effort seriously. As they entered their final year, the team faced mounting pressure. Their approach showed promise, but creating a stable, self-sustaining system that could contain meaningful amounts of energy remained elusive. The dynamic fields required constant adjustment, and their control systems couldn't react quickly enough to prevent eventual collapse. "We need a different way to process the feedback data," Eliza said during a critical review. "Our computers can't make adjustments fast enough." Quaim, who had been unusually quiet for days, finally spoke up. "What if we don't use computers at all? What if we use the quantum flux itself to regulate its own containment?" The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "You're suggesting we create a self-aware containment system?" one of the engineers asked incredulously. "Not self-aware," Quaim clarified. "Self-regulating. We create a parallel flux stream that naturally counterbalances the primary stream, like a predator-prey relationship in an ecosystem." It was radical. It was unproven. It might be impossible. But as Eliza looked around at her team of brilliant misfits, humans who had spent their lives proving experts wrong, she knew it was exactly the kind of solution they needed. "Let's do it," she said simply. As they approached the final months of the challenge, their lab on Proxima became a crucible of innovation and desperation. Sleep was sacrificed. Meals were forgotten. The boundary between day and night blurred as they raced against both the Council's deadline and the increasing scrutiny of alien observers. What they were attempting defied conventional scientific modeling. Their simulation systems, based partly on alien technology, kept returning error messages or impossible results. Eventually, they abandoned the simulations entirely and moved straight to physical testing, a dangerous approach that resulted in 3 lab accidents and 1 near-catastrophic breach that would have vaporized half the facility if not for Maya's quick thinking. Yet with each failure came new insights. The team began to understand the quantum flux not as an energy to be caged, but as a complex system to be balanced. Their containment design evolved into an intricate dance of opposing forces, constantly shifting to maintain equilibrium. 2 weeks before the deadline, they achieved continuous containment for 72 hours. "It's working," Jason whispered as they watched the monitoring screens, afraid that speaking too loudly might somehow jinx their success. But is it enough? Eliza wondered, knowing that the Council would demand more than a laboratory demonstration. For the first time in 3 years, they allowed themselves a small celebration, a brief moment to acknowledge how far they had come. Tomorrow they would begin preparations to transport their prototype to the Galactic Council headquarters for the final evaluation, where they would face the judgment of the most advanced civilizations in known space. As the team raised glasses of champagne saved for this moment, Eliza found herself staring at the swirling patterns of contained energy in their test chamber. It wasn't just a scientific achievement, it was a statement. Humanity might be young among the stars, but they would not be dismissed. "To the impossible," she toasted, and her team of impossible dreamers echoed the sentiment. None of them could know that their greatest challenge still lay ahead, or that the true test would come not from the physics of quantum containment, but from those who feared what humanity might become if they succeeded. Defying the odds. The interstellar transport vessel Arcturus hummed quietly as it approached the massive Galactic Council station orbiting Centauri Prime. Through the viewport, Eliza watched the enormous structure grow larger, a testament to the collaborative engineering of a dozen ancient species. Somewhere within that sprawling complex, the Council chambers awaited their presentation. "Final systems check complete," reported Jason, who hadn't slept in 36 hours. "The containment unit is stable, power consumption nominal." Their prototype, dubbed HFY by the Earth media, was secured in the ship's cargo bay, surrounded by monitoring equipment and backup systems. After achieving sustained containment for 96 hours on Proxima, they had carefully disassembled it for transport. Rebuilding it on the Council station would be their first major challenge. "Any update on the observation team?" Eliza asked Maya, who was monitoring their diplomatic channels. 7 species have requested to observe our setup process," Maya replied, frowning at her display, "including the Krith and Marin Collective." "The same ones who tried to hack our systems," Quaim noted dryly. "What a coincidence." The Council had assigned them a preparation period of 3 standard days before the formal demonstration. It should have been sufficient time, But Eliza couldn't shake her unease. Too many powerful entities had invested too much in the impossibility of their task. Their reception at the docking bay was coldly professional. A VR official, her crystalline form shimmering with subtle colors, greeted them with practiced diplomacy. The Council welcomes the human delegation and has assigned Laboratory Complex 17 for your preparations. Observers will maintain a non-interference perimeter as stipulated in the challenge protocols. As they were escorted through the station's vast corridors, Eliza noticed the curious stares from various alien species. Word of their approach had spread, and many seemed eager to witness the expected human failure firsthand. Laboratory Complex 17 was impressive, far better equipped than their facility on Proxima. But the team quickly discovered subtle problems. The power supply fluctuated unpredictably. Calibration equipment gave inconsistent readings. Small issues, easily attributed to compatibility problems between human and alien technology, but the accumulation was suspicious. "They're testing us," Eliza told her team in a whispered meeting after their first day of setup, making things just difficult enough to create plausible technical issues. "The quantum field stabilizers are off by 0.003%, Maya reported. "Not enough to trigger alarms, but enough to cause cascade failure during full operation. And 3 of our auxiliary control modules have microscopic fractures in their containment housing," added Jason. "Nobody touched them but station personnel during security screening." Quaim leaned forward, his expression grim. "We expected this. It's why we brought redundant systems and kept certain aspects of the design compartmentalized." Eliza nodded. "We proceed as planned. Triple-check everything. Trust nothing provided by the station. And," she hesitated, looking at each team member, "we implement Contingency Prometheus." The others exchanged glances. Contingency Prometheus was their most closely guarded secret, a radical modification to their design that they had developed but never tested. It was their final card, to be played only if all else failed. The next 2 days became a chess match of technical maneuvers. For every obstacle placed in their path, the human team found a workaround. When the primary cooling system mysteriously developed microfractures, they reconfigured the secondary system. When data corruption appeared in their control algorithms, they restored from encrypted backups hidden within seemingly mundane equipment. The observers watched with increasing frustration as the humans refused to be derailed. The Krith representative, a towering figure named Voxmar, finally approached Eliza directly as she calibrated a field emitter. "Your persistence is admirable, Dr. Chen," he rumbled, his translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics of his native speech. "But surely you recognize the fundamental futility of your approach. The void theorem has stood unchallenged for millennia." Eliza continued her work without looking up. "Many things stood unchallenged until they weren't, Ambassador. Flat Earth, immovable continents, the impossibility of heavier-than-air flight. Your species' history is irrelevant to universal constants," he replied dismissively. Perhaps Eliza finally met his gaze, but our approach to those constants might not be. As the Krith departed, Maya slipped beside her. Security sweep detected quantum resonance scanners focused on our primary containment unit. "They're trying to map our design." "Let them look," Eliza replied quietly. "What matters is what they can't see." On the eve of the demonstration, disaster struck. The team returned from their rest period to find emergency containment barriers deployed around their laboratory. Inside, their prototype lay in ruins, components fused and melted beyond recognition. The VR administrator expressed formal regret, explaining that a catastrophic power surge had overwhelmed the safety systems. Accident investigation would commence immediately, but unfortunately, the demonstration would need to be postponed indefinitely. The human team stood in shocked silence as the administrator departed, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that almost seemed like satisfaction. 3 years of work, whispered one of the junior engineers, tears forming. All for nothing. Eliza surveyed the destruction, then turned to her devastated team. Everyone out. Now. Once they were alone in their assigned quarters, she activated a signal jammer and addressed the confused group. "This isn't over," she stated firmly. "In fact, it's proceeding exactly as we anticipated it might." Understanding dawned on Maya's face. Contingency Prometheus. Eliza nodded. What they destroyed was our decoy, the real breakthrough technology. The self-regulating quantum matrix was never installed in the prototype they saw. "But the demonstration is scheduled for tomorrow," Jason pointed out. "Even with the backup components, we can't possibly rebuild in time." "We don't need to rebuild," Quain replied with a thin smile. "The real prototype has been hiding in plain sight since we arrived." Through the viewport of their quarters, the swirling light patterns of the Centauri Nebula cast an ethereal glow. Beneath Eliza's bunk, locked in what appeared to be a standard personal storage unit, lay the true heart of their creation, a device no larger than a shoebox that contained the most revolutionary aspect of their design. "We have 12 hours, Eliza told her team, "and we're going to show the Galactic Council what humans do when backed into a corner." The great chamber of the Galactic Unity Council was filled beyond capacity the next day. News of the human prototype's destruction had spread, yet curiously, the Earth delegation had not withdrawn from the challenge. Representatives from every major species crowded the observer galleries, eager to witness whatever desperate measure the humans planned. Supreme Counselor Keltar called the session to order, his massive form dominating the central platform. "We have been informed of the unfortunate incident affecting the human demonstration. Does the Earth delegation wish to formally withdraw their entry?" Eliza stepped forward, her simple blue uniform stark against the elaborate ceremonial attire of the alien dignitaries. "No, Counselor. We are prepared to proceed as scheduled." A murmur swept through the chamber. The Krith delegation conferred urgently, their massive heads bent together. "This is unexpected," Keltar replied. "Your prototype was reported completely destroyed. That particular assembly was compromised," Eliza acknowledged. "However, our actual solution remains intact." She signaled to her team. Jason and Quain wheeled forward a small cart bearing what appeared to be a simple metallic cube, approximately 1 meter on each side. The gathered aliens leaned forward, many using enhanced visual sensors to examine the unimpressive object. "This is your quantum flux containment system?" asked the Marin representative, their gelatinous form pulsing with what translated as disbelief. "Part of it," Eliza confirmed. She turned to address the full council. "Honorable representatives, the challenge before us was to create a stable quantum flux containment system. We have done so, but not in the way any of you expected." She activated a control panel on the cube. Its top surface became transparent, revealing a swirling miniature cosmos of energy patterns inside. Beautiful, complex, and perfectly stable. "What you see is a self-regulating quantum matrix," she explained. "Unlike traditional containment approaches that attempt to create impenetrable barriers, our system works with the natural properties of quantum flux. It creates dynamic patterns that the energy naturally wants to follow." The chamber had gone completely silent. Hundreds of alien eyes, sensors, and perception organs focused intensely on the display. "This demonstration unit contains enough quantum flux energy to power this entire station for 1 standard year," Eliza continued. "But more importantly, the design can be scaled up indefinitely without losing stability." The Xith ambassador, a being composed of interlocking geometric shapes, floated forward. "Our sensors detect no external power source sustaining these fields." "How is this possible?" "Because it doesn't need one," Quain explained, stepping forward. "The system harvests a small fraction of the contained energy to sustain itself. It's self-regulating and self-powering." "Impossible," declared the Krith ambassador, rising to his full impressive height. "This violates the void theorem. It contradicts established universal constants." "No," Eliza replied calmly. It contradicts your understanding of those constants. The void theorem assumes that containment requires opposition, that you must create a barrier that pushes back against energy with equal force. We rejected that premise entirely. She gestured to the swirling patterns. Our system doesn't fight the quantum flux. It dances with it. The energy flows in patterns that reinforce rather than degrade the containment field. The more energy you add, the stronger the containment becomes. The Supreme Counselor himself had risen and approached the device, his ancient eyes studying it with intensity. If this functions as you claim, it would revolutionize energy production throughout known space. That was the point of the challenge, wasn't it? Eliza asked with a slight smile. The Council's scientific verification team swarmed around the device, deploying advanced sensors and analytical tools. Hours passed as they conducted increasingly sophisticated tests, while the human team answered countless technical questions from increasingly respectful alien scientists. Finally, the head of the verification team, a VR scientist whose crystalline form had shifted to a deep blue of professional respect, delivered their verdict. The human containment system functions exactly as claimed. It not only meets but exceeds the parameters of the challenge. The design is elegant in its simplicity, revolutionary in its implications. A profound silence fell over the chamber. Supreme Counselor Keltar turned to face the assembled representatives. For 3 centuries, our finest minds declared this problem unsolvable. The humans solved it in 3 years. He turned to Eliza. How? How did your species succeed where so many failed? Eliza considered her answer carefully. I believe it's because we hadn't convinced ourselves it was impossible. The established species of the Council have built upon millennia of scientific progress, incredible achievements that we humans can only marvel at. But sometimes such deep knowledge creates its own limitations. You knew too much about why it couldn't be done. She gestured to her team. We approached the problem with fresh eyes and without the burden of certainty. Where you saw immutable laws, we saw possibilities that hadn't been explored. We questioned assumptions that your civilizations had accepted as truth for centuries. The Krith ambassador, who had been uncharacteristically silent, finally spoke. You understood something fundamental that we have forgotten. Yes, Eliza agreed. That the universe rarely deals in absolutes. There are no unsolvable problems, only problems we haven't solved yet. In the days that followed, the implications of the human achievement rippled through galactic society. The Galactic Council formally awarded humanity the development rights as promised, but the true prize was far greater, a newfound respect among the stars. Research delegations from dozens of species arrived at Earth, seeking collaboration with the civilization that had achieved the impossible. Humans, once dismissed as primitive newcomers, were suddenly valued for the very qualities that made them different: their willingness to challenge established truths, their creativity in the face of constraints, their stubborn refusal to accept limitations. 6 months after the demonstration, Eliza found herself back on Earth, standing at the window of the newly established Interspecies Research Institute in Geneva. Below, teams of human and alien scientists worked side by side, combining ancient wisdom with fresh perspective. Director Hakim joined her at the window. The VR have invited us to collaborate on their dimensional folding project, he informed her. Apparently, they've hit an impossible roadblock. Eliza smiled. Then they've come to the right species. Outside, the setting sun cast long shadows across the Institute grounds, where the impossible was becoming just another problem waiting for a solution. Humanity had taken its first true steps into the galactic community not as followers, but as innovators, proving that sometimes the newest voice in the room has the most important thing to say. In the vast chamber of the Galactic Unity Council, the human delegation now occupy a larger, more prominent section. Where once they had been afterthoughts in cosmic deliberations, they were now sought-after partners. Their quantum containment technology had begun transforming worlds across the galaxy, bringing sustainable energy to civilizations both ancient and emerging. and on a distant shelf in Supreme Counselor, Keltor's private chambers sat a small replica of the human device, a constant reminder that certainty, even when backed by millennia of knowledge, should never be mistaken for truth.